What's up, fellas? Welcome to a brand new episode of The Sports Student. My name's Wendell Epps, aka The Sports Student. In today's podcast, I'll be interviewing Dallas Cowboys reporter Dani Sureck. In this podcast, Dani will share her experiences working in the sports media industry, what it's been like being a reporter for the Cowboys, and will also give her own advice on what it takes to make it in the sports media industry. So sit back, relax, enjoy the podcast, and without further ado, this is a sports student interview with Dani Sureck. Ladies and gentlemen, today I am joined by a very special guest. I have Dani Sureck with me. Dani, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. How's your summer been going and how are you doing?
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. Summer's good. It's pretty much over because training camp starts a week from today, technically. So my summer is just about over, but it's been good so far. It's not been too hot down here in Dallas, so it's been good. I'm ready for football, though.
Oh, that's awesome. I think we all are ready for some football. It's crazy because like every NFL offseason, I always feel like it's so long. You know, it just goes by so long. You're just ready for see more football back on your screen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but the other end, like I have had work to do since the
Very
day
true.
after the season ended, right? Like it's a couple months of draft. And then like, at least with the Cowboys, we're at the part where we have really been working on documentaries that we do this time of year. So it has been slow, but there's definitely been plenty of work to do. But I'm excited to actually have football now to talk about.
Absolutely. So can you just go ahead and quickly explain what exactly do you do for the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a host reporter for the Dallas Cowboys. So a lot of my stuff that I do, I'm in front of the camera. So hosting shows either by myself or with other people. I, as a reporter, put packages together for live shows, for tape shows, things like that, doing things that go on social media platforms, kind of things like that. But I also do a lot of work behind the scenes as well as an editor, content producer, things of that nature. So really working specifically on the shows that I host of not even just prepping the rundown or my script, but actually cutting the video, giving specific time codes. We're having a bigger hand behind the scenes in some of our new like projects or series that I'm a part of, things of that nature. So it's kind of a little bit of everything right now. I'm working as an associate producer and a writer for one of our documentaries. So it's kind of a whole realm of things. Like on any given day, I can wear many hats, which is great. I love that. But a lot of my stuff over the years has really gravitated more to being in front of the camera.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad you kind of mentioned how you are doing a variety of things like in front of the camera and then also behind the camera, because, you know, me being in college right now, studying sports media, we learn from our professors that it's not just about being in front of the camera all the time, that you have to still know those skills behind the camera. So can you kind of explain the importance of actually developing and having those variety of skills when it comes to getting in the sports media industry?
Absolutely. It's so important. It's what makes you stand out from any other candidate because you become more versatile. You become more independent if you are able to edit or if you're able to shoot and you're able to kind of be creative and do more than just go in front of a camera because so many people can do that. So the more you can do, the better. And it was actually things I learned from school that got me my first job being behind the scenes, not even in front of the camera, which is like how it got me to where I am today. My first job out of college, I was an editor at Fox Sports Southwest, now Bally Sports Southwest, working on a bunch of shows. And that was kind of how I got my foot in the door and found some people who were working on shows and said, let me show you what I can edit. Like, I really want to find a way on camera, which led me to doing high school football once they saw what I could do. And then from there led to the Cowboys. So it was really my work as an editor, which got me my first job, which led me to connections to get me with the Cowboys. So it's absolutely so important. Personally, I love the fact that I know how to edit and I kind of have that eye because I find it really helpful when I'm going through a story and I'm figuring out what kind of questions I'm wanting to ask, what I'm wanting to learn, how you kind of envision a story being put together. And the fact that I'm able to edit that and I'm able to kind of envision that maybe a different way as a reporter who doesn't have that kind of experience does, I find that to be really helpful in terms of just start to finish process on any sort of project that I'm working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because just the more you know about that stuff, it just makes you appreciative more of like being in front of the camera because you actually know like what's going on behind the scenes.
Exactly.
So it definitely goes hand in hand with each other. And now you've obviously got a great position with the Cowboys. Can you just explain like what is it like working for the Cowboys? Because they're not just one of the most popular franchises in the NFL. They're one of the most popular franchises in all of sports. And that's a known fact by a lot of people. Seems like everywhere I go, it's like I see Cowboys jerseys. So just how is it like working for an organization like that?
I mean, it's incredible. I'm from Dallas, so the fact that I get to work and cover the team that I grew up, my family grew up cheering for, is really special. It's not something that I, forget about often or anything like that. It's so much fun where we work and what we get to do. And the Cowboys specifically are just so great in terms of giving us freedom of talking about when the team is doing really well, and also the freedom to kind of be objective, even as team employees, to talk about what's going on. I mean, the facility, the Star in Frisco, is top notch. It's incredible getting to work there every day. That's definitely a nice perk. It's just a lot of fun the way that we're able to interact with players and coaches, and just the way that they respect the media and the job that we have to do, and get to create some really fun, important content. It's definitely fun to work for the Cowboys. People's ears definitely perk up when they, learn that's who you work for, and it's definitely a lot of fun for sure.
Absolutely. I'm sure it definitely is a lot of fun. So what storylines kind of have you the most intrigued for this upcoming season? I know there's a lot, especially with the Cowboys, but what are some storylines that kind of stand out to you that you're looking forward to see how they unfold this upcoming season?
You know, it's hard because there's so many different storylines that you could look at. Obviously, the defense is coming off historically the worst year. They allowed almost 500 points, which is a franchise record, like 473. They had the worst goal-to-go defense in the league, and that was clearly an area they focused on. Their first 6 players in the draft, all on the defensive side of the ball. So that's definitely an area that we're all going to be looking out for, especially the cornerback position. That was what they had kind of really wanted to focus on early on in the draft, and it didn't pan out that way. And they got a great player and linebacker Micah Parsons out of Penn State. But I think the fact that there are so many young cornerbacks, which was an area that they really struggled in last year, is something to keep your eye on. But I personally think the biggest storyline is just the offense. Dak Prescott is back coming off that gruesome ankle injury. Week 5 against the Giants ended his season. The offensive line, every single starter at some point missed time due to injuries. You lost both starting tackles for the season. So the fact that Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins are back, Zach Martin, their guard, is back. Dak Prescott, like, I think the main storyline to keep your eye out for is this offense. And now that everyone is back and healthy, like, how explosive can they be? And how important it is that they are explosive and dynamic, because that's going to keep the defense off the field. That's going to end up helping their defense in the long run, especially if it's, a few kinks to work out with so many young players. I think the big storyline to watch, especially early on in the season, is this offense. And they're going to have to put up 30, 40 points a game with some of their opponents to, really, really give themselves a chance to win.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely hurt for Cowboys fans and even just NFL fans seeing Dak go down last season, because he was having such a great year, and now he's coming back. So that definitely should be interesting to see how all of that unfolds. So I want to know for you is what's a typical Sunday like for you during a Cowboys game?
Busy. No, it's a lot of fun. So at the Star in Frisco, our headquarters, we have a really fabulous studio and control room. And so we have pre and post game shows that we do. So me specifically, I'm actually never at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. I am always at the Star. So that's where I am. For me, I do some packages for our pregame show, things to keep an eye on that I'm working out throughout the week, and kind of helping give the 411 on what to know leading up to the game. During the game is where I do a lot of my production side of things, just because those games are aired nationally. We don't do anything specifically during the games except for, cutting things for our website or things of that matter. So normally during a game, I am either in our control room running EVS, which is our editing replay system, or I'm helping out with the social media side of things, clipping things off to put on Twitter, some kind of realm in the editing aspect. And then we have post-game shows that we do afterwards. And those, I love a night game. I love Sunday night football. It's so great. But I tell you, when you don't leave work until 2 in the morning and you got to be back up, hair, makeup, ready to go by 8 a.m., Mondays can be quite long, but especially if they win, then it's worth it. But
Exactly. Yeah. Anything
fun,
for a win.
long.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I mean, it's already, I feel like Sunday's already hectic for me, like during football season, like just as a fan, but I can't even imagine like actually working for a team. Like it's just got to be like 100 times more hectic.
But it's fun. I mean, like the busiest day of the week for work is like watching a football game. Like it truly doesn't get much better than that. And like that's what I like to remind myself on, like those long days, or some days are just like not great for whatever reason, and it's hard and it's tough. And like at least for me, I'm like, this is what I want to do. I'm not the kind of person who was okay working a 9 to 5 job, working for the weekend. Like this is what I want to be doing. And that's what kind of gets you through those long, hard days.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's a great point you make there, because the sports media industry is obviously a very busy industry to enter. But if you're really passionate about sports and all that stuff, then it makes it just a lot easier to be able to thrive and succeed in it. So I just want to know, how long did you know that you wanted to get in the sports media industry? At what age did you realize, okay, this is the route I want to go in?
I wish I had a good answer, but I don't even really think I do. I think I just knew for a long time that I really didn't want to do like a 9 to 5 sales, marketing, any kind of job like that. That was just not something I was really passionate in. I was always really passionate at like writing and more things like that. And in high school, I had an English teacher who, I went to a very large high school. And so something like newspaper or yearbook, like they couldn't let everyone in. You had to like apply and be nominated. And my English teacher had told me she nominated me, and I hadn't even thought about it. She's like, I think you would be really good at it. And so I was on, the school newspaper, and I really liked telling stories and writing. I didn't particularly love the idea of becoming like a newspaper writer, but it opened my eyes to just the journalism realm more so. It helped. My older sister was studying physical therapy at the University of Missouri. And so that's kind of, I'd known for years about the school, had been on my map. And then going through that process, it's the #1 journalism school in the nation. So it was kind of a no-brainer to apply. And once I got in like that, that was where I was going, and it was amazing. And that was just kind of it. Like it was tough going through that program, but I loved it. And I knew that sports specifically was meant for me, because at Mizzou, through that program, you have to start working on news stories in a newsroom, like an NBC affiliate, legitimate newsroom. That's where everyone has to start. And I see why. It was tough. I learned a lot. Personally, it was not for me, that entire atmosphere and those kind of stories. Once I was able to kind of shift into the sports side of things in the newsroom, I just loved it so much better. And I kind of knew that I wanted to be more with a team or a network or something like that, where I could really just focus on like a specific sport or schools, as opposed to just kind of doing a hodgepodge of things from whatever city or town I would be in. And so that's just kind of how it led me to the opportunities I was seeking out and the connections that I was making, and just kind of worked out in that way for me. But I wish I had like a great aha moment of like, this is what I'm going to do. I mean, I always loved sports growing up, but I don't recall ever. Maybe I'll have to make up a story. Like, since this isn't the first time I've been asked, like I'll have to think of like a really awesome story, and I'm just going to have to stick with it. And that's going to be my answer.
Hey. Nothing wrong with that. I think that would be fun. I mean, what you're doing right now is all about like creativity and being innovative. So that would be totally fine. But how, I mean, just thinking back on your college experience, because like me being in college right now, I've had some pretty unique opportunities thanks to my school and High Point University. But for you, going to Mizzou, like how awesome was that to be able to get like some really unique experiences in college, and how have you feel like they've helped you now with your career?
Oh my gosh, 1,000%. I don't even think I really knew what a broadcast journalist at a local news station like really does. Like I just didn't really understand until I went to school. Like the person you see on air for 2 minutes spends their whole day researching the topic and doing interviews and editing and writing an online story and doing all these things to prepare. And it's a lot of work. Like it's very respectable for the people who do it. And so Mizzou just kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things. And I learned a lot. Like I was doing all of that. since the start of my freshman year until I graduated. I was running a camera and I was shooting all of my interviews and asking the questions and then going back to the newsroom, and I was writing a story for the website, and I was putting together packages and VOSOTs for the 5 and the 6, and then later for the 9 and the 10. And then I was going out and I was live where I was anchoring. It was like, they call it the Missouri method because it is legitimately what you will do in a newsroom if that's the way you go in your career. And so that was really great. There were some really hard moments, and I learned a lot of things, not just skills, but also just like how to take and learn from constructive criticism, and how to push through a really hard day, or how to not be so hard on yourself, or how to kind of loosen up. And so I learned a lot of that in school, and I learned a lot about how to make connections and figure out what kind of way I wanted to go down this path. It was amazing. Like I loved Mizzou. I loved everything that I learned. The alumni network is really strong, really widespread all over the world. So that's really nice. And I also work with 2 other Mizzou alum in my group, like the play-by-play announcer, Brad Sham for the Cowboys, and one of our most tenured writers, Mickey Spagnola with the Cowboys. We all went to Mizzou. So that's a nice little perk too.
Hey, that's awesome. You guys all grew up and kind of went to the same school and experienced the same background. So do you remember the first interview you ever did?
You know what? I do. I don't remember the name, and I don't remember like questions I asked, but at least not like for a school project. I don't remember the first one for like where the first 2 years, like all of the things we're doing are just for class. Once you get to a certain point throughout the program, your class work is just whatever you do at the newsroom. So it's like double whammy. And I do remember the first story I went live for. It was that whole semester. I was the morning reporter. So the morning show went from like 4 to 7. So I had to go to bed, try to go to bed at like 8 o'clock, because I had to wake up at 12:30 in the morning to get ready, to be at the newsroom by 2 at the station, to finish what I had to do to get back out to my my spot where I was going live. And I remember the first story in Missouri, they had like MoDOT is like their Department of Transportation. And they were doing something with like the big signs they had, and like construction and like fixing potholes and things like that. And I remember that was my story because it was so early and it was still really cold. And I remember the exact place I had to stand on the service road in order to have the right shot at this like specific billboard was in mud. And so I'm like standing in mud and it's cold. And like, I came down with a cold afterwards, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is what it's always going to be like it's going to be miserable. And it wasn't, but like, I remember like getting no sleep because I was so anxious, and I like had to be up at before 1 a.m. anyway. But yeah, that was my first like real experience, like putting a story together and going live. And it was definitely memorable. Mm-hmm.
That definitely sounds like a memorable story. I think I'm going to remember that one. It didn't even happen to me. So yeah, that's definitely sounds like a welcome to the sports media industry kind of moment. I wasn't
sure I was going to make it through the rest of the program, like the last year and a half I have. But
got through it. Yeah. But obviously, like now that you've been in the sports media industry for a couple of years now, I want to get your opinion on how have you seen the industry change, and where do you see it kind of taking off for the next 5 to 10 years?
I think the most obvious answer for both parts of your question is just social media. Like the way that it has just completely transformed everyone's daily lives, not even just media members. And all of these new apps and trying to find ways to be engaging. People don't have a very long attention span when they're looking at their phone, they're looking at videos. And so you're having to find a way to be catchy to get them to open the video. You have to find a way to be informative and be fun and do it as succinctly as possible so that they're watching the entire video. And that's something that's really hard, constantly having to try and evolve with. And so it's kind of difficult at times finding a way to make them intertwine in a successful manner that's engaging and trying to be as original as possible, which is also hard because anyone who has a Twitter account can be a blogger or like get their opinion across or go viral or anything like that. So I think that's just the hardest part, is trying to find ways to be creative and engaging and keeping up with all of these apps and trying to reach as many people as possible, right? Like, so many of our demographics are longtime Cowboys fans, older generation. So they like more of that new style show, people at a desk in a studio. And then we also have a lot of younger fans. And so it's like, okay, how do I make a TikTok? How, what kind of video will this video work best on Twitter? Like, what should we put on YouTube? How short can we make this? Like, how can we make the graphics pop? Like, there's a lot of things where you have to be so specific and so organized and planned in what you're posting and where you're posting and things like that. And that's the thing that can kind of be difficult to maneuver between. And I think that's where it's going. I think there will always be TV and news stations and shows like that. I just think so much of this is all going digital.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to see all the new things that kind of come out in terms of like digital media, because it seems like it's just changing every single day. I got to ask you, how active are you on social media? Is that something that you really kind of take pride in with your line of work?
That is a very fine line to kind of walk between, because I want to be myself. Right. Like I want to be I'm a very sarcastic, witty person. And so I want to keep that on my Twitter. And then you also have to bring in the news side of things of the Cowboys or what's going on, and finding a way to talk about that while still being yourself. I'm not going to even pretend I'm one of those people who has 1 million followers on Instagram or anything by that means. I think that's really hard to find a way to build a genuine following that I'm at least still working through. I am a millennial, a younger millennial, but I guess I'm older in the sense that I personally don't have a TikTok. But I see all the things that on Instagram Reels or Twitter, and that's kind of how I try to stay in the know. But yeah, it's definitely can be difficult of trying to be yourself while still coming across as professional and being newsy and things that you tweet and stuff. And okay, well, do I respond to this person? How honest do I want to be in my response to this person? This person was a jerk. Do I want to call them out? It's almost daily of okay, should I do this or that?
Yeah, because there's definitely going to be some trolls there on social media. So you just kind of got to forget about them. But definitely social media can obviously present some pros. It's just really how you use it, I would say, at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give to someone in college, or maybe they're just starting in the sports media industry, being in front of the camera? Because you've had experience being in front of the camera now for quite a while. Just what's some of the biggest pieces of advice you can offer for people who want to get in that realm?
As hard as it is, even though it sounds easy, try not to be so hard on yourself. And that's something that I'm still even having to work through every single week. You want to continue to give your all and your best, and you want every show to be perfect. But then you also want to bring in your personality. You don't want to be too scripted or too newsworthy. And it's a lot. And we're all human. Everyone's going to stumble. Everyone's going to make mistakes. Something's going to happen. And it's just finding a way to step back and you know what? It's okay. Not every show is going to be perfect, and trying not to be so hard on yourself. I think too, it's really important to, in camera, wherever you want to go down this road, to try not to compare yourself to someone else's journey. No one's path is going to be the same on getting from A to B, right? Some people have a linear where they go from here to here. Other people are all over the place. And sometimes you might have to do jobs that you don't really want to do, or you weren't initially thinking you would like to do. And you just sometimes have to kind of tough it out, and just be patient and focus on yourself. And it's so easy to compare yourself. Oh, I think I'm so much better than that person. I could totally do that job. Why didn't I get that opportunity? And it's you have to find a way, you know what, let's lift each other up. I'm really proud of you. Try and learn from them. Oh, that was a really great way they worded the question, or that was really fantastic the way they segued from point A to point B. And so it's just not being so hard on yourself and being patient as you work hard to get to that next step.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great piece of advice you just offered there. And so sometimes too, people will kind of, especially people in college, will kind of understand that the sports media industry, you're going to be busy, you're going to be traveling a lot. So sometimes there's concerns where, oh, how am I going to balance, my work schedule with the personal life? For you, what do you have to say about that? And like, is it really easy to sort of balance it too, or is it kind of hard? And if it is hard, what are some things that you've done that have sort of worked for you to kind of make things a little bit more easier in a sense?
Without trying to like scare people by saying this, it is not easy. This is an industry where weekends don't exist, holidays don't exist. Hard 5 o'clock out, punch the clock, you're home doesn't exist. And you just have to weigh whether or not that's working for you in your life. When I was with now Bally Sports Southwest for a few years, working on a whole range of sports shows, Dallas Stars, Texas Rangers, Spurs, Mavs, a lot of times my shifts wouldn't start until 3 or 4 o'clock. I'm not getting home till 2:30 in the morning. That's Friday and Saturday. That's Friday and Sunday. And it's unfortunately just part of it. I have worked the last 3 or 4 Thanksgivings with the Cowboys. I've missed bachelorette parties. I've not been able to go to weddings, and it just becomes very personal in your decision making on what's worth it for you to miss. And of course, things come into the decision making process of like, how long have I been here, right? Like, what's my status? Can someone cover for me? But it's definitely not the easiest thing in the world. And compared to working with Bally Sports Southwest, where like it's kind of all year going from season to season with different sports, at least with the Cowboys, I do have some more flexibility. I have 5 or 6 months of the year during the off season where like I'm still going to work and doing things every day, but like I can meet friends for happy hour, or like I have the weekends to myself. And that kind of makes up for the fact that I'm working 6 or 7 days a week for 6 months during the season. And you'll find the right friends who understand of like last minute, I'm so sorry, I have to cancel, I can't come, or like I got to be at work super early tomorrow, like it's a noon game, I have to be at work by like 6:30. Like you just have to make those own decisions based upon whatever the specific situation is. But I really don't want to sugarcoat it. It's not always easy finding that balance, and especially early on when you're trying to take advantage of every opportunity and trying to get reps and more experience. It's just one of the sacrifices that has to be made.
Yeah, no, for sure. I really appreciate you for just being honest there, because I mean, that really is, at least from people like you, I've heard that before. Like that's just how the sports media industry is. And it's just one of those things you have to kind of take in consideration if you're trying to get into it. But going back to the Cowboys and the NFL, obviously the NFL now, regular season schedule's expanded now. You got an extra game in there. So what are your thoughts on that? And what effects do you think that's going to play on the Cowboys and the rest of the NFL?
I think it's going to have a really big impact, and not even just this season, but I think moving forward. The NFL moved from 4 to now 3 preseason games, which might not have a huge impact on all of your starters, but the preseason games are very important. I think we learned that last year with not having any, of just maybe those second or third string players, or special teams players, or working through certain plays or defenses. Like they are very important. So you now lose one of those, which might be okay, but now you've got an extra game to play. You still only have one bye week, which I think might be where things will change in the future. If they add like an 18th game, you have to add a second bye week for those players. I mean, what they're putting their bodies through. I think too, it'll be really interesting to see now that there's an extra week. Okay, if teams are clinching their spot in week 14 or 15, you're going to go 2, maybe 3 weeks without seeing someone like Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, and you're not, a lot of these starters aren't going to play. And I think that's going to be something that really affects it too, is then too, like, well, if you've clinched, like, do you keep playing those players? Maybe you like are trying to win your division. Like I just think it's going to be so different team to team. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot of that, kind of what we see like in the NBA, of more like a load management kind of thing. But I think like if they continue down this path, and maybe it settles on 2 preseason games and 18 games, right? And one of those games is in Europe or wherever it might be. Like I see them having to add more bye weeks, more rest time. and then having maybe a shorter break right before the Super Bowl.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely going to be very interesting to see how everything unfolds. Obviously, like this being the first year that's in effect, it's probably going to be different for players and coaches. And it'll be one of those things we'll just kind of have to get adjusted to, as time goes on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to go ahead and I want to see, is there a certain Cowboys game moment during one of your shows that you just remember vividly, like something maybe that like unexpected that happened? Any funny moments you can share with us?
Oh man. During like one of our shows or something, or like during a game?
Could be anything. I mean, maybe just a game you remember, maybe a show where things just kind of blew up. Maybe there was a hot topic, any tweet you made that got a lot of attention.
Yeah, I have one for all of those. No, I think just like funny things of like we do a high school football show. So the Ford Center is the indoor facility at the Star in Frisco, and Frisco ISD has a deal where all the football teams play there throughout the season on Thursday nights. And so we kind of help a local TV station, and we do like a preseason game, like a pregame show rather, about the matchups. And so my role is I'm usually out on this plaza where kids are playing outside, and I can't tell you the number of times like I've been standing there holding my mic, my producers in my ear stand by, and my camera guys yelling duck to the left, like almost getting hit with a football. And it's like, it's funny, but in the moment I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, that happened to me also. We had a big watch party for a pregame show in 2019 before we played the Patriots, and I was roped off. Originally I wasn't, I was just to the side. And so you could see the pregame show on this big Jumbotron out on the plaza. And as soon as people realized where I was and that they could see themselves on camera, mayhem ensued. And they came to me 3 or 4 times in the show, and every single time it was like a new security measure had been taken. Like the first time was just chaos. The second time, like they moved me closer to the camera away from the field. The third time they added like a rope behind me. And the fourth time you could see like the security officer like standing there. Like it was just crazy. In terms of like a tweet going viral, I don't really have many. My one like immediately stands out, especially Cowboys related, is, gosh, I wish I remembered the game now. Last fall, I tweeted, so are we done comparing Carson Wentz to Dak Prescott? Because Carson Wentz had an awful game, then he got benched, and it unexpectedly just like blew up. And people all in my mentions telling me how awful Dak is and Wentz is so much better, and people saying it was never a comparison and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to stay out of this. So I didn't really respond to anyone there. But I mean, we have a lot of fun on our shows. I personally really love doing our draft shows. I think those are the most fun to kind of not make fun of people, but kind of have fun with each other on like their takes and who the Cowboys should take and a certain player. And that's kind of where I like to have fun with a lot of those shows. But everything, like, it's definitely a lot of fun. It's something every week, it seems like, of like big news to talk about, which is really great from our standpoint of like, okay, that makes creating content pretty easy. But
right.
We have lots of fun.
I'm sure. I mean, that's just like the beauty of sports. It's like there's always something new to talk about, especially you covering the Cowboys. they probably have the most storylines out of any NFL team. I
mean, it doesn't matter which player it is or what the point of what they're trying to make is. Like if a Cowboys player says something, it's everywhere the next day.
Exactly. No, it definitely is, for sure. All right, Dani. So I want to go ahead and I want to end this interview asking you a couple rapid fire questions, if you're up for it.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Okay. Let's do it. Favorite sports movie?
Oh gosh. Oh, I'm not very rapid, am I? Remember the Titans.
Good one. What's one food you can't live without?
French fries.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Super strength.
Good. I like that. If you could describe Cowboys fans using just one word, what would it be?
Loyal.
if you could describe your reporting talk show style using just one word, what would it be?
Witty.
If you weren't working in the sports media industry, what would you be doing?
I have no idea. I'd be a dog walker. That'd be great.
Nice, nice. What's your favorite quote?
They can knock you down, but they can't knock you out.
Love that, love that. And what's one fun fact that a lot of people do not know about Dani Sureck?
I don't know if it's like necessarily a fun fact, but like the one food I absolutely can't eat is grilled cheese.
Really?
Which is so weird. I love bread and I love cheese and I just can't do them. Like the melt, I don't know if it's the melted cheese or like nothing to break it up. Like I just can't do them.
Maybe you haven't had the right one yet.
You know what? People say that and I don't think it's true. I really don't. I don't know what it is. It's not really a fun fact, but yeah, no, I can't do it.
That's hilarious. But Dani, thank you so much for coming on the podcast again. I mean, you have done some incredible things in the sports media industry. And I just really can't wait to see what else you do. You're very talented and I'm definitely a huge fan of your work.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, it's been fun. Like this is the fun stuff of, you know, I've always been so grateful for the people who helped me, whether it was just answering questions I had or advice as I was graduating college, getting into the industry or looking at my reel or anything like that. And everybody is so connected. And so you always want to be so kind to others and give back. And I've always been so grateful for the people who were so helpful for me in that time that like, this is the fun stuff, being able to kind of give it back. So no, this was lots of fun and like props to you for putting this on and like taking advantage of like what you know in technology and like the fact that you can do a podcast from anywhere. Like that's fantastic, getting like tons of experience when like you don't even have to, like you're going out of your way to like get these reps, and that's just wonderful. Highly like commend you on that.
Hey, for sure. I really appreciate that. It really means a lot. I mean, this wouldn't be possible without bringing someone like you on. So again, just thank you for coming on.
Of course. Yeah, anytime.
All right, fellas, so that was a sports student interview with Dani Sureck. Another big shout out to Dani for coming on the podcast today. It was so fun talking to her. She has done some incredible things, and I can't wait to see what else she does in the sports media industry. But that'll do it for today's podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in my next one. All right, y'all, take care. Sports student, signing out. Peace.